ago. So thank you to Young Electric, thank you to Heffernan Insurance Brokers, to Gantry Incorporated, and to JKL Construction Services. We also thank everybody who has individually given towards the Amplify Asian Voices campaign. We're going to put the link in the chat box so that you can click directly in your browser or on your phone and have that loaded up. To date, we already have over $5,000 raised, and our goal is 20,000. So we're kind of almost there, but we would love for you to give whatever you can today while we are speaking with the state treasurer herself. So we're going to put that in the chat box, and you can click and donate whatever amount is possible. I'm going to hand things over to one of our co-founders of Asian Commercial Professionals, Wayne Huey, to say a few words about ACP as well as about this new initiative we're launching, Amplify Asian Voices. So Wayne, over to you right now.
Well, thank you, Emily. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you all for your participation in our first AAPI virtual gathering. Without you, our voices are minimized. So I appreciate your involvement and attendance to this effort. As one of the founders of ACP, I appreciate your interest in our cause. I want to thank Fiona Ma for her continual support to our group, as well as supporting the issue at hand. I want to thank Emily for putting this event together, as well as her Herculean efforts on making our purpose a reality. I want to thank Mark Kim, our president, for leading ACP through this pandemic environment we have been faced with, including the challenging times of increased racial tension and violent crimes to our elderly that we are dealing with right now. I want to thank my co-founder of ACP, Stuart Lee, and the special committee for their constant support in making our voices heard. At ACP, we asked ourselves these horrible things that were happening. Should we use our platform to speak out? We started out with our why. As we shared our own stories and experiences, that answer became very, very clear. Realizing that this was a very sensitive, highly emotional subject, we felt we needed to start now. Using ACP as a platform to speak out against this hate that would be around us, not to be passive, studious, keeping our heads down and continually working hard, but to say, let's do something about it. For those from my generation know what I mean when I say that. Not to shut up and dribble, as some would say. Our goals are to provide leadership to the community by informing them what is going to help make this change. Education towards AAPI history to remind us all the importance of who we are and the ability to help expand people's tolerance of our own biases. We will also continue to provide educational scholarships to promote our community upward. But let me clarify something. ACP or AAPI, ACP Square or AAPI is not created to replace our original cause, but an expansion of it. We are an intelligent, resourceful group who has the capability and the passion to make a stance on the hate that has impacted our community. The time to act is now. The deep scars that this hate creates and will continue to sustain itself within if we don't provide tools to our community to deal with it. We want this cause to grow beyond the here and now, and for change to happen, we need this discussion to continue forward for the sake of our community and future generations to come. So I appreciate everybody being here and supporting our cause. Thank you, Emily.
Further ado, I'm going to introduce our special guest, the guest speaker, California State Treasurer Fiona Ma. She is California's 34th state treasurer. She was elected in 2018 with more votes than any other candidate for treasurer in the state's history. She is the first woman of color and the first woman certified public accountant, or CPA, elected to the position. The state treasurer's office was created in the California Constitution in 1849. It provides financing for schools, roads, housing, recycling and waste management, hospitals, public facilities, and other crucial infrastructure projects that better the lives of residents. The treasurer herself, she serves as chair or member to some at least 15 state boards, authorities, and commissions. That's a lot of work that she's involved with. So to learn more about California State Treasurer Fiona Ma, you can log on to www.treasurer.ca.gov. Again, that's www, and I have to make it Americanized so it doesn't sound like a strange word, www.treasurer.ca.gov. So it is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to California State Treasurer Fiona Ma.
Thank you, Emily. And it's interesting because I don't know about you, this is the first time on Zoom that they are transcribing our words. And it's very interesting to see what they're picking up and what they're not getting correctly, like mom. Instead of Fiona Ma, it's like my mom.
Well, they picked it up right there, just there. I think it's the
It did? Okay, good. Good. Well, great to see you, and thank you, Wayne, and others. Mark, it's been over a year since we had our virtual, our in-person meeting. I saw from the picture, and what a difference a year makes. So I look forward to spending the next hour or so with all of you and catching up virtually at least.
Thank you so much, Fiona. And yes, a quick tip in the chat box, you can turn off the live transcript if it is distracting. If you need instructions, Mark is more than willing to help facilitate that. So to kick things off, Fiona, tell us something that we might not necessarily know about you from doing a Google search online.
Okay, well, let's see. Growing up, in the 4th grade, I was the banker in our class's Snake River Valley project. And I think sometimes things are put in your mind. In 4th grade, I was the banker, and today I am the state's banker. So you never know when something that you do in your childhood becomes a reality. I also played in the bands. I played flutes and also drums and started my own band. Also in junior high called the Banana Splits. I did synchronized swimming, for example. I did 4 sports growing up in junior high and high school. And I was a top cookie seller in my Brownie and Girl Scout troop, which I really think led me to this career of politics, because selling cookies is similar to running for office. Every year you go and knock on your neighbors' doors, you sell them cookies, you have to deliver the cookies, you have to collect money, and then for the next 365 days, you're seeing your neighbors in the neighborhood, you know, and they're saying, when is it cookie season? When is it cookie season? Kind of like how that is in real life. When you're running for office, same concept. So I always say to parents, if you want your kids to run for office, train them to be cookie sellers, good cookie sellers in Brownie and Girl Scouts.
Oh my gosh, you heard it first. And I'm curious to know, when you were elected state banker in the 4th grade, was that your personal decision or was that sort of osmosis from your parents?
It was my parents. I'm sure like many of you, my parents decided early on I should be an accountant because I was good at math. But growing up, they had me balance their checkbook, you know, and write out all the checks and file. And so he was training me early on. And so when this project came up, my mother wrote me a recommendation letter saying that she highly recommended me to be the banker because I think it was like, because I'm hardworking and I'm honest. And that was her recommendation letter that I still have today.
That those two qualities still stay true to this day, hardworking and honest too.
Yes.
Did you always envision or dream about becoming California State Treasurer? You started out in accounting. I read online. I also listened to a few of your interviews. You started out in the Big Four accounting. What was the hardest thing about that journey for you in beginning your career in public service and along the way?
Yeah, it was actually the Big Eight accounting firm back then. So I'm a little bit older than what you're assuming. But I started out with Ernst and Winnie in the real estate tax department in the San Francisco office. And I stayed only for 5 years because there were no women or people of color in leadership positions. But in the 5 year period, I did all my audit hours for my CPA license. I got my master's in taxation from Golden Gate University. And then I did leave after 5 years and to start my own practice. And while I was networking for clients, I became president of the Asian Business Association. So that's where I met Wayne and others, networking, and Darlene Marr and Jonathan Leong. They had been president and chair for many years, and they recruited me and kind of fooled me and said, if you become president of the Asian Business Association, you will get a lot of clients quickly. It's not going to be a lot of work because we're going to be there to help you. So don't worry. And I said, okay. Yeah, I'd never been president of any association or any, nonprofit. So I said, okay. And it became more than a full-time job, as all of you know, right, Emily?
Yes.
There was a nonprofit, don't worry, but it becomes a passion, more than a full-time job, but definitely worth it along the way.
And could you talk to us about some of the challenges that you face specifically as an Asian woman, a daughter of two Chinese immigrants, on how your leadership journey has been? What were some of the unique challenges that you faced?
Yeah, well, I was very lucky because I have a tiger dad. My mom was a teacher, an art teacher, and suffered from depression most of her life. So she wasn't the driving force in our family. It was really my father. And my father, to his credit, he encouraged us always to try anything, right? And anything we did, I felt like I was great at it, not knowing any better. But if I said I want to go try out for the choir, he goes, go do it. So I would try out for the choir, and I had a solo, and my parents came and they're like, you're so great. I'm not a great singer, okay? I'm a karaoke singer at best. But back then I was like, okay. Then I was like, okay, I want to like swim. So they're like, okay, go join synchronized swimming. So I joined and I had a show. My parents came. They're like, oh, you were so great. I'm not sure whether I was so great or not, but growing up, I thought I could do everything. And that has led to who I am today. The fact that I never think I can't do anything, because my parents or my dad would always say, just go try it, go try it. And so I've done a lot of things in my life, but public service is definitely my calling. Took me a long time to get there. I didn't get elected to my first office until 36 years old, probably older than you. But once I got elected, I worked really hard, worked harder than everyone else. This is my fourth elected position. And I do it because, number one, I don't want my parents to say, I told you so. Number two, I never want to go back and do people's taxes again. So public service is something that is fulfilling to me. I get to help people every day. I love people and interacting and seeing and learning and touring. And it's just, this is a great position for me because it's never the same every day. Like I could not go to an office every day and do the same thing every day. And this job, nothing is the same every day except waking up and going to bed at some point.
You truly live and love the work that you do, and I can definitely sense that from the way you talk about it, and you're so excited and the energy that it brings. A quick tip or a reminder for those of you who are listening right now: it is tax season, so make sure to submit your taxes on time to avoid any penalty. You talked about your mom because you mentioned that you grew up with a tiger dad. You know, May being Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm myself a Chinese Asian and who suffers from anxiety. So this month is a pretty big month for us to maybe talk a little bit more about mental health awareness of mental well-being. You mentioned that your mother has had to navigate her own journey with depression and mental illness in one of your previous interviews. I mean, how can we end the stigma and taboo of opening up? As you know, in the Asian community, we don't quite like to share what we're going through. We don't talk about our feelings or emotions, and maybe we keep what's happening at home very private. And in that way, it prevents us from really getting to the root of a lot of the issues that we're kind of navigating. So how can we end that stigma, do you think?
Yeah, I think by talking about it, the fact that you are saying in public that you have anxiety, I think a lot of people have anxiety, especially during the pandemic. So it shouldn't be something that we're ashamed of. Um, we need to, like you said, break the stigma and talk about it, that there are other people that have the same conditions or anxieties, and then maybe it's a way for us to figure out how to resolve it, right? How to figure out your triggers, how to get help when you need it, because there is help out there instead of feeling alone and helpless. So I think we need to talk about it more. May is also Hepatitis B Awareness Month. And I was born with hepatitis B. My grandmother gave it to my mother at birth. My mother gave it to me and my brother. But my sister, who's 16 years younger, was vaccinated at birth. So she does not have it. And when I started talking about hepatitis B, my cousin, who was born in China, said, "Oh my God, don't talk about it." She was like crying. She's like, I'm like, why? She's like, "Oh, because people won't vote for you." And I was like, what do you mean people won't vote for you? Well, in China, the reason hepatitis B is so prevalent in the Chinese community, especially, is because it's been passed down from generation to generation. And in China, if you had hepatitis B, you could be denied a job, you could be kicked out of school, and also kicked out of housing. So, of course, nobody even wants to think about it. Nobody wants to, diagnose it because the ramifications are so serious, and therefore it continues to pass on either from generation to generation or from people. So by talking about it, now we tell people, please go get tested. If you don't have it, you can get vaccinated so you'll never have it. And the Bay Area has had the highest level of liver cancer in the nation because of our high population. And 10 years ago, I don't know how many people would have said, someone in my family died, my uncle, usually, or like, a relative, grandfather, because of they're not sure what it was, right? They're like, well, some sort of cancer, right? Maybe liver cancer, but directly linked to hepatitis B. So if we could catch it early, we could actually save lives. And that's what happened with my mother, because we all went and got tested. My mother was diagnosed early with liver cancer. We were able to take out the liver, the cancer, and she lived an extra 10 years. So that definitely works. So it's a month, but it should be any time that we should be able to talk about all the things that are afflicting our individuals, ourselves, or our communities.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is like we need to talk about it so that we know exactly how to fix it and problem solve together. So yeah, speak openly about it and find a trusted space to do that if you're not quite sure if it's your first time, maybe it's mental health or maybe it's hepatitis B or just an illness that you're working with. There's a lot of resources that you can find online, but find those safe spaces. I'm curious to know, State Treasurer, you sit on at least and chair at least 15 boards and commissions. I mean, how do you stay grounded? What does true rest look like for you? Are you always on? Or do you have downtime? I mean, how does a successful woman in leadership like you find rest?
Yeah, well, I'm very lucky that at the treasurer's office, we have 450 people, team members, and they are very highly motivated and dedicated to their job, right? A lot of accounting types. So just you don't have to watch them and they're just busy, right? They know what they want to do and they want to do their jobs well. So I'm very lucky. It wasn't like that in all of my positions. So that's number one, hiring good people, trusting them to do the work, but you also have to oversee. So we have a lot of meetings now in COVID. We have a lot of Zoom meetings. We touch base. We make sure, people know the direction. If they have questions, I can guide them and they know what my vision is and my expectations. So I think that helps. Number two, with Zoom, I am exhausted, like many of you probably. I think I'm working harder because it's so intense just staring at a screen and having the light on you all day long. I look forward to the time when we can meet in person so that we can at least spend some time traveling in the car, listening to the radio, right? Things that distract us a little bit. But what I have done during COVID is I've been watching Korean dramas. I don't know if any of you watch Korean dramas, but they are extremely addictive.
Yes.
My favorite, of course, is Crash Landing on You. I could watch it every day, but it's 16 episodes, so it takes a long time. And me and my girlfriends mostly, we watch different Korean dramas and we post it and give them, grades. And it's an opportunity also to spend time with my father. So my father and I don't typically watch the same shows. He likes to watch Robo Wars, he watches tennis, he watches the War Channel and some doctor that pimple popper. I don't know, those are his favorite shows. And I don't like to watch any of those. So by watching Korean dramas, he now watches with me. And he likes it because the women are usually pretty and the cinematography is good. The subtitles are excellent, okay, compared to some of the Chinese dramas, not so good in terms of the translation, but Korean dramas are really, really good these days. And it's just that they're always very interesting. They're not predictable all the time. And so now my dad and I just started one about tennis. Since he loves tennis, I've played tennis all my life and in college, we're watching a Korean drama about a young boy who's playing tennis, and we just started. So stay tuned for another 15 episodes.
I love it. I love it. And your face definitely lit up when you talked about Korean dramas and Crash Landing on You. We need to form a Crash Landing on You appreciation club. That was like my binge watch. And I have heard, Fiona, that you have not watched, you've joined at least 200 webinars in the last year alone. That is a lot of screen time. So I appreciate that you've taken some time with the K-drama because I wholeheartedly believe that when we as leaders are well inside, like well-being for leaders, we can do well and serve the community. So I love that you're able to do that with your dad as well with the new tennis K-drama.
Yeah, well, the fact that you have to read the subtitles, I have to put my phone down. And that I found has been the most relaxing part of my day is once we start about 6:30 or 7 o'clock, my phone is off for about 3 hours. And that actually has been a lifesaver.
Amazing, amazing. Can't wait to switch some K-drama notes after our session today with you. Vice President Kamala Harris recently shared that in just the past year alone, 2.5 million women left the workforce, and that the pandemic has put decades of the collective progress for women at risk. So the question is, how can we support women at work where we are right now when so many are burnt out? They're bearing the brunt of the caregiving most of the time. They've had to put their careers on hold. What are some ways people in leadership can think about making meaningful change in the workplace so that women can thrive? Because this is truly what people have dubbed a she session, where women are just leaving the workforce and the career pathways are just astronomical figures. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and so that was the problem with the big accounting firms back then, is that when women wanted to get married or have a kid, they basically lost their job, right? Because the workplace didn't accommodate part-time, workers or at least allow women to have a flex schedule. And now, if you look at accounting, most of the accountants now at the Big Four are women, and they are more accommodating to women, their schedule, and also allowing them to work flexible hours. And I think that's probably a key, because when something happens, your kid gets sick, your father or mother has to go to the hospital, well, who's the one that takes off their work? Is it the father, or is it the male, or is it the female? And it's usually the female, right? And then it's not just that one day, but then when they come home from the hospital, someone has to take care of them, organize caregivers potentially, right? Meals. And then the women have to take more time off of work. And so I think we just need to be more accommodating. Gavin Newsom also is proposing in this budget, he's going to release his May 15th budget tomorrow. He's proposing 100,000 childcare slots, subsidized childcare slots. And that's also an issue for women as well. If you're a single mom, or you're splitting time, co-parenting, sometimes you have to take care of your child. And if your child is sick, you can't send your kid to daycare or preschool, right? Someone has to stay home with them. So having at least subsidized childcare slots, I think, is going to go a long way. And that's the number one legislative women's caucus priority, is more childcare.
And would you say then that we should have more women in leadership? Like, we should encourage more women in leadership because, we as women, we're more empathetic, and we can definitely identify and relate to other women who might be, caregiving or just dealing with similar situations that we face in the workplace. Is it about getting more women elected, getting more women in leadership or in the government levels?
Absolutely. I saw a friend yesterday I hadn't seen in a long time, and he was like, it's so great that Kamala's vice president and there are women leaders around the world. We need to make sure more women are elected as governors, right? Our priorities are different. The way we manage, the way we communicate, the way we get things done, I think, are a little different than men, but it's not easy to get elected into office. It's not easy to rise to the CEO position. And so it is still very, very difficult for women. And we don't see, even today, we haven't seen a lot of changes in terms of women heading, major banks, major law firms, CPA firms, film industry, and even elected officials. Some of us have gotten there, but after we leave, is there a pipeline? Very, very difficult.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. On your website itself, you've actually listed 8 values that you and your office, your entire office of 400 people, lead by. I mean, I'm going to name a couple, not all of them, but treat everyone with dignity and respect. Find a solution and a path forward. Be a good steward of the state's resources and conscious that all citizens are your employer. Exercise mindfulness towards yourself and towards others. I mean, what are some of the values within the context of the Asian culture that your parents raised you to support who you are today as a leader? Are there any Asian values that you were brought up with that you carry as you lead today?
Yeah, of course, get straight A's, right? Make sure that we are like studying and advancing and, getting as many degrees and certificates as we can, because those will help you in the workplace. At least it gives you credibility, right? They can't say you're not qualified. So that's one step in the door. I think as Asian Americans growing up, we weren't taught to speak up and be vocal and debate, like at dinner time. I know I hear some families, they have a debate and they talk and they find a topic. We didn't really have that. It was really my father speaking, and we would listen. And if we didn't agree with him, we didn't say anything. And that, I think, is different in the new generation, the millennials, who are coming up in the ranks, where they want to debate, they want to challenge you, they want to speak up and attend the rallies, like all of this Stop Asian Hate rallies. It's a lot of the young people that say we need to get out there, and then the parents bring them out there, but parents aren't necessarily comfortable, right? I was at a Stop Asian Hate event in Palo Alto 2 weekends ago. And, there's like these chants and someone's on the megaphone, right? Saying, when do we want it? Now, stop Asian hate. Yes, right? And we weren't really used to that. Like nobody could get like what we're supposed to say, we just like, we're marching along very quietly, feeling a little uncomfortable, holding our signs, right? So that's something different that I think we need, especially now in what's happening. We need to stand up, we need to speak up, we need to show up, and we need to represent. Because if we don't care about our own communities, how are other people going to care? So the Black Lives Movement, you can see it was very, very diverse, the people that showed up. The Stop Asian Hate movement, it's starting to become a little more diverse. At first, it's small groups of Asians, but now I'm going to go to another one on Saturday in Sacramento. I think it's going to be a lot bigger, and we're going to have more people come out and show up and rally with us.
Yeah, on that note about Stop Asian Hate and everything that's going on. I mean, I really relocated to the San Francisco Bay Area in 2019 from Singapore, and one of the first few experiences that I had was being called a mail order bride, being called a coronavirus, told to go home, being shouted at, and that was pretty early on when I first moved here. But according to reports and research, I know that I'm not alone. Stop AAPI Hate, they actually did a study, and they said from March 2020 to this past March in 2021, there were 6,603 reports of violence and racism targeting Asians and Pacific Islanders. So here in the Bay Area, I know we're seeing so many stories. You had the father with the baby that was attacked in front of the supermarket. You had the two grandmothers sitting at the bus stop on Market Street being stabbed out of the blue. I mean, what are your views on the violent attacks, on the microaggressions, and just the blatant racism that's been happening for members in the AAPI community, especially since this isn't new. It's just in the last year, it's definitely surged. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I was hoping that things would subside a little bit now that we have a new president in the White House, but it seems like people are still, attacking and, scapegoating other people. And I think once we open back up on June 15th, hopefully people will get back to work. They will be busy. They will be, earning a living again. A lot of it probably is frustrations of being home and feeling trapped. But for us, we need to just make sure all of our friends, family, and neighbors are safe when they go out. Don't take anything for granted. If someone needs to go out, if you have a little time to go take that person, to the supermarket, or just make sure, you call them before they leave. Please ask them to call you when they return home. I think we need to be a little bit more vigilant about what's happening out there and just careful. I mean, I don't walk. I stay at a hotel in Sacramento. It's about 5 blocks from my office. I don't feel safe walking by myself. And that has never really happened until this past year. So we just all need to do what we can, and hopefully we can just spread positivity and love, and just make sure that we are doing what we can to keep each other safe.
Yeah, just to reflect what you were saying, you are staying in a hotel, but then you're being very conscious about your surroundings. I know we as women now, Asian women and Pacific Islander women or women of color, I'm just seeing a lot of on the Instagram on activity of people carrying around baseball bats and having the mace and the personal alarm systems in their car as they're going with their kids in the back to the grocery store. I mean, this is like a whole new kind of situation to live so tense and so stressed and so anxious and needing to be like that all the time. I think it affects us on a mental and emotional, on a physical level. I mean, our nervous system is just shot because we're just so stressed out and looking around us. In what ways could we see more Asians, Pacific Islanders, and underrepresented groups become more active and engaged with some of the systemic issues like racism that we deeply care about? Is there a way for us to be more active, to make a difference other than, arming ourselves with self-defense and baseball bats, which isn't really going to solve the bigger problem, right?
Yeah, you know, I'm inspired that there are organizations, people stepping up and forming organizations. I participated in Stop Asian Hate event about a month ago to help compassion. I think it's Compassion in Oakland.
Yeah, Compassion Island.
Yeah, these three women formed an organization to basically train civilians to be ambassadors, right? So when people are shopping in Oakland, Chinatown, or San Francisco, walking around, that they're almost like a civilian public safety officers on the street, just being that eyes and ears, hopefully to be a deterrent. So whatever we can do to raise awareness and support organizations that are making a difference. Law enforcement is important. Having Rob Bonta appointed as our new Attorney General, he is going to prioritize hate crimes and making sure that we prosecute people who victimize people. That is important because if people know that they are going to, there's going to be consequences to their actions, then maybe that will also slow down all the hate crimes that are happening.
Thank you for sharing that. We're going to transition into a Q&A with the community that has joined with us today. Just a reminder that the questions that we are not going to be able to ask for this specific session is anything related to the state's fiscal health or the budget. I just want to remind everybody the intention for this session is specifically about, amplifying Asian voices, as you can see with our virtual background. It's about the state treasurer's leadership journey. So we can answer any questions related to that. And we do already have a question from Clayton Jew, who asked, have you experienced discrimination as a politician, and how did you respond?
Yes. I mean, you can feel discrimination. I don't think specifically. Okay, well, actually, I do remember. Yes, it's been a while, but when I was running for the Board of Supervisors in the Sunset District, uh, Sunset District was supposed to be the Asian seat back then, the Chinese seat. So that was 2002 when I would walk precincts. And many times, if it was not an Asian door, Asian voter that I knocked on their door, sometimes I got shouted at. I got, the door slammed in my face. They would say, I'm never going to vote for a Chinese, or, go back to where you came from. I mean, it was pretty shocking. And as a whole, I would have to vet my list. If they were usually men, older men that were not Asian, I just wouldn't even bother knocking on the door. The women were much nicer. Even if they didn't like me, didn't want to vote for me, they would just say, oh, honey, I'm sorry, I'm having dinner now, right? But the men were pretty rude to me. So I definitely did feel a lot of direct racism back then. But since I've been running for office, it's been better because I thought that California, as the 5th largest economy, the most diverse in the nation, that we actually celebrate and value diversity. But this latest situation has really set me and my mindset back almost 20 years to how it used to be. So it's sad, and I hope that once we get back to work and everybody's happy, making money again, that again, we will focus on the things that we have in common, right? Come to this country, we want to have a better life for our kids. We want our kids to go to best schools, get good jobs, get married, buy a house, and then hopefully retire in, dignity and safety. I think that's what we all want out of our lives. And so to get back to the basics and focus on that is what I'm hoping we will do sooner than later.
I also think that you've probably developed a sort of a thicker skin. I mean, to be able to rise from accounting and then to run for office and then getting into the political space and government, you have to develop a sense of thicker skin because, you know, there's a lot of keyboard warriors that are going to have a lot to say, but are not necessarily in the work. And I've always believed as leaders in the community, whether you're a leader in the boardroom or a leader in community like I am, you've got to have a little bit of a courage to be disliked, because if you're out there trying to please everybody, you're going to be bending yourself backwards all over the place. So I can appreciate that you've developed a sense of a thicker skin doing what you do and being in a position of leadership.
Yeah, when I was on the board of supervisors, I would say half the city is mad at you. And every day it's a different half of the city that's mad at you, right? Because you voted a certain way, or you didn't do something, or you said something. So San Francisco politics is really, really tough, but it is true. You can see what's happening now in some of the political races, that it's can't please everyone all the time. People are angry and they want to take it out on someone, right? Because they're so angry and there's nothing for them to do, no help. Sometimes a lot of helplessness.
Yeah. We've got a question from Susan, and by the way, we've got another 10 minutes for a Q&A directly from the community who's joined us today. So Susan, you say, what advice do you have for the community at large to best amplify and support Asian Americans in our community? So it doesn't necessarily to be like Asian supporting Asians, but just the community at large to amplify and support the AAPI community right now.
Well, I think, okay, so going back to the Stanford rally, it was Stop Asian Hate 8x8. And the 8x8 was go register 8 people and make sure that they vote. So that message is about empowerment, right? If we do not come out to vote, then other people are going to represent us and they're going to be the voices. And because California is so diverse, you look at all of our constitutional officers, for example, right? We have a Caucasian, Governor Gavin Newsom. Our lieutenant governor is a Greek daughter of immigrants. Betty Yee is the controller. She is the daughter of immigrants. I am the treasurer. I'm the daughter of immigrants. We have Tony Thurman, African American, also son of immigrants. Ricardo Lara, son of immigrants. He wasn't even documented. His parents were undocumented coming to this country, right? So you can see that our leader, and now Rob Bonta, right? Also son of immigrant parents working in the farm worker movement. So here in California, we are able to rise to power because we have strong support from our different communities. And that means assimilating, that means supporting, forming coalitions, and not, not staying in our own little box, right? We have to reach out and we have to represent a broader audience. And so I think for AAPI folks, whether we can help people get a job, get those internship positions, be a mentor or a sponsor at work, right? Find a mentor or a sponsor, because we can't do it alone. And we really do need people to help us in our, as we are evolving.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking about, voting more people in office, Chuck Huey, you say, I'd like to see more Asians in high level positions and in politics. Would Fiona have any suggestions or recommendations for Andrew Yang specifically and other young Asians in general? And I'm assuming that this is specifically for young Asians who are looking to take the path of political leadership. Do you have any recommendations or words of wisdom?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say for any young person or parents of young people, have them intern in different offices. We love interns. Pre-pandemic, I've had over 1,000 interns come through my office. Now we have to, host a virtual program, but definitely you start with internships. encourage them to run in their student body. That's a good way where they're actually out there campaigning and trying to, put together a platform and commit, to do certain things. And then as you get older and you're working, even like you, Emily, I would suggest trying to get on a board, commission, or authority, get appointed. And every level of government, from the federal, state, local government, we always are looking for civilians to put their hat forward and to be on these boards and commissions. And I would highly suggest that as a stepping stone, because once you learn how to conduct yourself in a meeting, there's Robert's Rules of Order, Sunshine Act, the Brown Act, there's a lot of things involved in politics. Then, like me, you start looking around at the elected officials and you start going, I think I could do a better job. And then that's where people are jumping into running for office. And so that's the next level. There's also a lot of training programs out there for people who are thinking about running for office. Emerge is out there, and Close the Gap for people, women who are thinking about running for the state legislature. And so I would encourage you to get involved and take all those free classes. Learn from professionals, right? Learn their mistakes, how to do better, so that when you're ready to go, hopefully you'll be prepared. However, you will never be prepared. I thought I was prepared. I waited 8 years until I ran for my first office, and there were still things that I was not ready for when I ran for Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, I hear you. And learn by doing. And speaking about learning programs that are free, I'm for women who might be watching the replay of this, if you're interested in getting politically active, in organizing, in leadership, I would highly recommend a group called Supermajority. I'm joined with them. So it's all about organizing and growing in our political power. Fiona, next question from Muriel Law. She says, how can we better leverage our differentiators as an Asian in our career path?
Differentiate our, what is it? One more time.
Leverage, I'm assuming this question, if I'm assuming correctly, Muriel, how can we better stand out using our uniqueness as Asians, using our values, and just using who we are as Asians to set us apart from and support us in our career path?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a carrot and a stick in life. Sometimes when the carrot doesn't work, right, then government steps in with a stick. And a bill that was passed back when Governor Brown was in office in 2012, SB 826, mandates a certain number of women on corporate boards. Those companies that are headquartered here in corporate in California are now required to have a certain amount of women on corporate boards. And it works, because before, out of 660 companies, I think more than half did not have a woman. And now, 4 years later, only about a handful don't have a woman on corporate boards. Governor Newsom signed a similar bill requiring a certain amount of minorities on corporate boards. So I think you will see a change in some of these leadership at the board of directors level. So be ready. That's all. If you're, an Asian and, they're looking for Asian, faces, representation, especially if they market and serve the Asian community, they would love to have someone of the community that represents, that's sitting on their boards or in their leadership position. So step up, express your interest. I always say, I can't read your mind. A lot of people will say, well, why did you endorse that person? I was thinking about running. I said, did you ever tell me? I go, I can't read your mind. You need to step up and let people know what your intentions are. Do you want to be CEO of this company? Do you want to be president of the United States? Right? People knew Kamala wanted to be president of the United States. So she didn't get there, but she's the vice president now. Andrew Yang wants to be president of the United States. He didn't get there, but he's probably going to be mayor of New York City. So put yourself out there. You may not always win, but at least people know what your intentions are and what you want to do in life. And then if they support you, then you will develop that following.
I love that. So Speak up. People can't read your minds. Step up and be ready so that when people actually, tap you on the shoulder, you're just ready and you're switched on. We've got last two questions from the group here. How many of your interns are from immigrant parents?
Most of them are. And that's because, as a leader in the Chinese community, many people, Chinese parents, want their kids to come and intern with me. And they usually want them to intern with me just so they can put it on their resume, right, as they're applying to colleges. Well, I get them, I can brainwash them, I can encourage them to go back to school and run for their student body. I can encourage them to think about public service as a career. And I just try to lead by example, and hopefully some of them will follow the lead, but at least think about the community. Our community thinks too much about ourselves, right? We're very insular. We're about, doing what we do with our own family, but we have to think about the greater good. And when we do, better things will happen for us.
Yep. And last question. Besides your father, or your tiger dad, as you affectionately call him, who was your mentor in the political arena? Was it another Asian female, or could you give some context about who was the person that kind of helped you become who you are today in the political space?
Yeah. 25 years ago, there weren't that many Asians around. I think Wayne and Stuart maybe remember Mabel Tang, the judges, right? Judge Lillian Singh and others. But my mentor was my first boss, John Burton. I worked for him part-time in his district office. And I remember when he offered me the job, I was president of the Asian Business Association and active with CABA. And Harold Yee and Frank Fung, they were all like, don't work for John Burton. He's like anti-business, he's like Darth Vader. And I said, well, John Burton has a long history in politics. I want to take a chance and work for him. And it was the best decision of my life. I would not have been here but for Harold Yee, Frank Fung, and John Burton, and Mike Honda. Mike Honda played a big role in supporting me and getting me elected to my next offices.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I see Wayne like nodding vigorously because I'm assuming you know those names, Wayne. It's a former generation. And we're going to just segue into what's coming up for Amplify Asian Voices, but stick around because there's a lightning round of questions specifically for the California State Treasurer to answer. It's more fun and lighthearted, but still gets us to know her on a personal basis. So let me just share my screen with you. And Mark Kim on the team, he's actually going to be dropping a link in the chat, which allows you to leave some feedback about, maybe what did you learn today from Fiona sharing? How did you appreciate? And it takes less than 5 minutes. I want to say if you want to be really quick, it takes 60 seconds. So we'd really appreciate if you could fill that link in. And we also want to thank our generous sponsors again, Young Electric, Heffernan Insurance Brokers, Gantry Inc., and JKL Construction Services. Again, you can donate. We've got a fundraiser going on through the end of the year. We're hoping to hit $20,000 by the summer. A bit ambitious, but we think we can get there. And again, that URL is in the chat box or www.tinyurl.com/amplify Asians. Some upcoming events for you to look forward to in June. So that's next month. We have the Deputy Attorney General of the California Department of Justice, Eric J. Chang, is going to be coming on board for a fireside chat, much like this one today. So you can register for that already. We're going to be joined by a team on how to have a conversation about racism with your child and the mental well-being impact kids have today from, viewing the news and watching the attacks happening on television. And that's together with a psychologist from Mayo Clinic and an educator from San Francisco. We have got a talk about mental well-being and how to flourish as a leader. The details are coming soon. And the last one, a fun one, storytelling through food. It's a virtual cooking class and small business business gathering. The chefs themselves, they are small business owners, very passionate about the Asian culture, but also about supporting small businesses here in the Bay Area. So again, if you want to register for those events, not all of them are up. You can go onto www.tinyurl.com/amplify Asians, and you can also stay connected with us as well. So we're going to go into the lightning round with the state treasurer right now. So quick ones. If you could step into my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't? Oh, hang on. I've got to unmute you.
Okay, how about this? So what have you been doing to help people during COVID?
Yeah, that's a good one. Do you want to answer that one real quick?
Yeah. So we talked about my 200 webinars that I've done, and they were all around bringing awareness and giving resources to our communities for small businesses, nonprofits, seniors, individuals, food access, and tax relief. And so those are on my website, www.treasure.ca.gov. And when you log on, you'll see two prominent websites. One is our official California COVID-19 resources website, and then the other one is my resource guide. So please log on if you're looking for any type of grant or loan program, so you're not applying for something that has been extended.
I love it. Thank you so much on behalf of all the small businesses and the families and the community at large for supporting us during the pandemic. I'm sure it was very challenging, lots of pivots, but your team has truly supported the community here in California. So the link is in the chat if you want to check that out. Who is a person that you look up to and why? Can be a current person or can be a person that is now in memory.
One of my idols is Hillary Clinton. I met her, or I heard her speak in 1995 when I attended the White House Conference on Small Business, and she just impressed me, her and Bill Clinton. And I kept in touch ever since, and I supported her in both of her presidential runs because I really, really want to see a woman president in my lifetime, and I never thought I would. And then when she didn't win, I was heartbroken again, but now we have my good friend Kamala Harris in the White House. And so I am inspired again, and I have full faith and hope that she is going to be the first woman president of the United States, breaking that ultimate glass ceiling for us.
We're so excited and looking forward to that day for sure. Because there's more people getting vaccinated here in California and across the nation, I'm sure plenty of people are getting itchy and wanderlusting and planning like where they can travel here in California or across the nation. What would be your favorite getaway spot in California that you would, either yourself would travel to or you would recommend to somebody who's looking to visit California? What's the favorite getaway spot?
Well, my husband and I tend to go to Laguna a lot, and we stay at our favorite place, La Casa del Camino, Laguna Beach. And so that tends to be where, if we have a free day or a weekend, we tend to be in Laguna Beach.
Love it. I'm going to Google that spot right after this call. Thank you for that recommendation.
It's owned by an Asian gentleman.
Even better. Support Asian businesses. All right, this is a fun one. If we could pretend that we are at the Oscars, so I'm not wearing this denim jacket and we're all in black tie. If we could pretend that we're at the Oscars, you have just received an award for Best Woman in Leadership of all time, and you have just 2 minutes to share a message with the world before the Oscar production team starts playing that classical music to cut you off. What would you say in those 2 minutes?
Well, definitely listen to your parents because they want the best for you, but ultimately follow your heart. Look for your passion. Even if you're not making a lot of money, but it's something that you are passionate about, trust me, life will come full circle. Everything will be okay. And it's more important to wake up happy and fulfilled with a mission in life every single day. So that's what I would recommend to everyone.
Just like the professional speaker that you are, that was under 2 minutes. We didn't have to play the cutoff music, so I love that. Follow your heart and Yeah, just work on what you're passionate about. I love that. And listen to your parents. And now we just give the floor to you, Fiona, for any final words, a call to action. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with us today before we close this time? This is now your moment.
Well, since I'm in elected office, yes, I encourage everyone to register to vote and to vote. This is our right in life. And so many times, I know even my own family sometimes doesn't turn out to vote because the ballot is too complicated or they're too busy. But this is the only way that we are going to amplify Asian voices in the political arena, is to register to vote and show up to vote and support candidates if you can financially, because money matters in an election. Money means we can get our message out. We can, put out TV ads, radio ads, walk door to door with mailers. So money also helps. So anything you can do, and having Asians in elected office representing at all levels of government will definitely amplify Asian voices. So thank you, ACP.